Okay, well, this was disappointing to say the least because this so far is the shortest episode of Shield, coming in at around 31 minutes plus, the 7 minutes of credits. So that's realistically 20, 21, 22, 23 minute video episode. Yeah, I mean that really isn't my problem with it though, because that's kind of the whole thing with She-Hulk, is that every episode is around half an hour. It's being pitched as a half-hour legal comedy, so that is not my problem, because you've had some great episodes so far that have that time crunch with just 30-ish minutes to work with. But my problem with this one is just it feels like nothing happened. I mean, obviously things did happen, but it doesn't really feel like it moved the story forward too much, or like anything important really happened. I don't know. It was just weird, and just disappointing. And, to be honest, it's both a pro and a con in my view. I mean, it's a con because, again, it was just a disappointing episode. Now we have to wait a whole another week to hopefully get a good episode. But on the pro side of things, I was really tired when I woke up this morning to watch this, and almost fell asleep watching it, which I guess is kind of a bit of a diss to the episode as well, that I was so bored I fell asleep, or almost fell asleep. But I was just so tired, so I'm glad it wasn't like anything super big that I had to like jump on right away. I went back to sleep after watching the episode. But yeah, so anyway, we are going to be talking about it. It's going to be probably a shorter review. I'm going to be going into some other things as well. But today, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to go check it out on Disney+. But for now, let's go and jump into this and break down Marvel Studios' She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Episode 5. Mean, green, and straight poured into these jeans. So, basically this episode is the follow-up to last week's cliffhanger where, Titania, Jamila Jamil's character, who we assume is our main villain here, she is suing She-Hulk over the name of She-Hulk, so she has trademarked that supposedly, and so it's a cease and desist and all this stuff. So that essentially is the crux of our episode, is just that we're dealing with Titania versus She-Hulk in the courtroom, and we do end up getting that case. Mallory is the one who defends Jennifer, and it wasn't really that interesting of a scene to watch. It was just one scene in the courtroom, pretty much, and it wasn't really that crazy entertaining. But, of course, as expected, it ends with the verdict of, okay, Titania, you will cease to have all this stuff, and blah, blah, blah. So, basically, She-Hulk wins. So, yay, the day is saved. It just feels like, I'm glad they didn't stretch this storyline out too long, because I wasn't really that invested in it from the beginning. Like, I always thought it was kind of lame of like, oh, our main villain, that's her big plan right there. But at the same time, it feels like, okay, that was just set up in like the last seconds of last week's episode and is already solved here, and so easily in like 1 to 2 scenes. So, I'm not too upset about it. But that was kind of our A storyline of this episode. But our B storyline I thought was way cooler, because we had Nikki and Pug. They went to go meet up with the Drip Broker. And so this is a guy that just has all these crazy designs. I love how they had like the knockoff Avengers merch with the Avengers and Avengers and all that stuff. So I thought that was hilarious. There's still some really funny moments in this episode. The big part with that is that Nikki is now setting She-Hulk up with the Drip Broker so that she can get her a suit. So basically the episode ends with Jen getting a She-Hulk suit. We never get to see it, but we've seen it in trailers and stuff. And this is one thing I'm glad about, because I've noticed that with pretty much every other MCU Disney Plus series, the main character never gets their new suit until the final episode, and then by the time you see the character again popping up in another project, they'll have a brand new suit by then. So that is one thing that is kind of always annoying me. They did it with WandaVision, they did it with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they did it with Hawkeye, they did it with Ms. Marvel, and now luckily we're getting the She-Hulk suit about halfway through this Disney Plus series season 1. Now, the big reveal here at the end, though, is that this Drip Broker, he has another client, because you see he has a little hat box type thing, and in that box is the yellow golden Daredevil helmet. And so it was a funny moment where he's like, oh, does nobody here care about confidentiality? But that's our big teaser cliffhanger. So I kind of have to assume that, okay, we're going to be seeing Daredevil in next week's episode. Charlie Cox has said he's only in one episode of this series, which is kind of disappointing, but hey, I'll take what I can get. And we're getting some Daredevil. I'm also looking forward to when we do eventually get Frogman / Leapfrog. We know Abomination's coming back, and we're going to be getting Titania hopefully sometime soon in a much bigger role, because again, she is supposed to be the main villain here. Now, that is pretty much for the most part what happened in this episode. That is pretty much everything that happened here, except we did have all of the guys that Jen went on dates with last episode as She-Hulk. They show up here as witnesses during the court trial, and I want to take this time to talk specifically about Todd, because I have a big theory about Todd. There's definitely something more going on with him. I talked about in last week's episode how it's been said that Todd is a character that he's a Tony Stark wannabe. He wants to be like Tony Stark. You definitely get that from him. You definitely get those kind of a rich playboy, at least pretending to be rich playboy vibes. So I did enjoy that, but I feel like there's some more ulterior motives here, because in last week's episode, for the credits, when it had Todd listed, it said John Bass, Todd / Hulk Todd. Now, I don't know if you go back and they've changed it by now or anything like that. And in this week's episode, it just says regular old Todd. But it is very interesting that it said Todd / Hulk Todd. So are we going to see this guy transform into a Hulk at some point in this series? Because we know in episode 3, we had the Wrecking Crew who was after She-Hulk's blood, and they're working for some sort of big boss. So who is that big boss? Again, I still assume that it is going to be the leader, but I feel like maybe, just maybe, John Bass's character Todd actually is one of those members of the Wrecking Crew, because that guy with the ski mask that tried to get the blood, he does, I mean, you can only see his eyes and mouth, but he does look pretty similar to Todd, so I would not at all be surprised if that was the case. I doubt Todd is going to be revealed as the big bad boss, but I feel like he may be revealed as a member of the Wrecking Crew, and that probably they will eventually get She-Hulk's blood. They'll all get powered up with She-Hulk's blood and become the Wrecking Crew like we all know and love from the comics. Hopefully, that's, fingers crossed that's what's going to happen, but that's my big theory going on here. I just, again, not much happened in this episode, so I want to take some time to talk about Todd. But again, that was pretty much it. A little bit of a disappointing episode here, but then again, I got to catch up on at least an extra. But anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you guys think about Marvel Studios' She-Hulk Attorney at Law episode 5 on Disney+? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it a little disappointing like I did? Let me know in the comments below. But for now, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.